how do I know how to get a land that will not result in problems? How am I sure I am buying a land with good title? How am I sure? What do I need to do? How do I even start? Welcome to Education. Welcome to another episode, another educative episode of Education. And today we are going to be having a discussion around land ownership in Nigeria. And this is the first episode of it. I'm sure you have experienced all manners of stories, or maybe you have personal experience with land ownership in Nigeria, and some of you are even scared and you are confused. How do I know how to get a land that will not result in problems? How am I sure I am buying a land with good title? How am I sure? What do I need to do? How do I even start? Some want to invest in land, they don't even know how do I start, how do I go about it. Yes, you are in the right place. This is the essence of this podcast, and we are going to be educating you. We are going to be breaking it down, the details, the things you need to do, the documents you need to have, certain pitfalls and red flags that you need to watch out for. So stay tuned. Let's dive straight into it. Land ownership in Nigeria is governed by the Land Use Act 1978, which primarily vests the ownership in land in the governor of each state. And by implication, it means nobody ever truly owns land in Nigeria. Everything vests in the governor, and what you get is just a right to occupy the land for usually a period of 99 years. Now, there are different types of land ownership. We can have the customary land ownership, wherein it is as a matter of the land is owned by a community or a customary family, by a community or family. Sometimes we call it communal land or family land. Another one is statutory land ownership. In this case, this has formal documentation wherein the state grants you a right to occupy the land for a period of 99 years. In terms of customary ownership, yes, it has validity in law. The the Supreme Court has given it validity in various cases, and except overriding by statutory provision, customary ownership remains valid. So many Nigerians acquire land through customary ownership and all, but transitioning to a statutory ownership is very much advisable. Some of the documents involved in land transaction are: number one, certificate of occupancy. I'm sure you've been hearing CFO. What it means is certificate of occupancy. This is a formal document issued by the governor or by the state to an individual to hold a land for a period of 99 years. So it is usually referred to as a statutory leasehold. It's a leasehold arrangement where you hold the land more like a lease for 99 years, after which it reverts back to the governor of the state. The second document is a deed of assignment. For every land that is covered by certificate of occupancy, when you want to transact on that kind of land, the document has to be drawn, which is called a deed of assignment, to assign the unexpired residue of the years which you have to the individual, to the third party now, but it is usually subject to the governor's consent. What that means is originally you have 99 years, but maybe you have used up 40 years out of your 99 years, and then somebody is interested in buying the land. What the person gets is not 99 years. He gets the unexpired period. That will, in this case, be 49 years. Is that right? That would be, in this case, 59 years, if my calculation is correct. That's what you get. So the person assigns his remaining years to you, and that's why it's called a deed of assignment. Let me quickly add that any form of transaction on a land covered by a CFO has to be with the governor's consent. And by transaction, I mean whether it's a mortgage, whether it's an assignment, whether it's a lease, whatever it is, any transaction on the land has to be with the governor's consent. Another document, like I mentioned earlier, is the governor's consent. Under the Land Use Act, I think Section 22 requires that every transaction in a land that is occupied by CFO or covered by CFO has to be with the governor's consent. So that's very important in land transaction for a land that is covered by CFO. Okay. How important is the governor's consent? It is non-negotiable. In fact, in law, any transaction that is not with the governor's consent, I mean the land that is covered by CFO, that is not with governor's consent, is regarded as invalid in law. Why are these documents very important? Well, they are very important because without proper documentation, your ownership, your land can be challenged. Your ownership in the land can be challenged. There have been various cases wherein the ownership in the land is challenged, and because there was no registration of the transaction, maybe the land was not, the transaction was not registered at all, that transaction was declared invalid, and so people lose the interest they have in the land. They lose their interest, they lose their money, they lose their time, and all of that. And that is why it is important, non-negotiable, for you to properly document and perfect your title in a land. Also, usually, even banks don't grant you loans on a land if it is, number one, not covered by CFO. Usually, if it is not covered by CFO, they won't grant you loans, or if there is any form of encumbrance on the land, they will likely not grant you loans. Maybe we'll talk about that word encumbrance in our next episode. Thank you. It's been a pleasure being on the show with you. I hope you join us again next week for another edition of L'Education. And by the grace of God, we are going to continue to episode 2 of this land ownership in Nigeria, what you should know and the things you should do. Until then, see you.